What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. Before we jump into this, a fun little tidbit. Myself and Comicstorian run a channel called Eligible Monster, where we play video games alongside Comicstorian's wife, Natalie, or @Zodical you could find her on Twitter. And we play video games and have fun. So it's actually pretty cool. You guys should check it out. The link will be down in the description. At the top of the description, won't it, Gordon? Gordon's my editor. So, so here's a cool thing. Something that I want you guys, that hopefully you guys have noticed, because you guys will have noticed, we've been running through the Iron Man stories. We finished out Captain America that went into all new, all different Marvel. We finished out Thor that went into all new, all different Marvel. What I hope you guys notice are a trend, because what we're doing is I'm literally creating this massive playlist called the Marvel Major Events Playlist. And it covers all the major events that Marvel's done for like the last 10 years, which all go in or at least chronological order as best as I can make it. And then they all go into all new, all different Marvels. So it'll be like this huge playlist full of stuff. But nonetheless, so Old Man Logan becoming Venom. This is kind of interesting because remember, the original Old Man Logan story was basically an alternate reality story. It dealt with this reality where the various villains of the Marvel Universe had been rallied under the mantle of Red Skull. Of course, I've covered this story, and I'll pin that that actual story arc down in the comment section so you guys will see it. But it dealt with the idea that the Red Skull had rallied all these villains together and then started pairing them off with superheroes they would normally never fight, just because they were better suited fighting some superheroes than others. And so of course, Old Man Logan, when it came to the Wolverine character, largely dealt with the idea that the villain Maestro, who had the power to basically create illusions, tricked Wolverine into thinking that some of their most notable enemies had invaded the X-Men mansion. The result was that he had responded by killing all the villains, only to find out that the villains he killed were actually all the other X-Men. And so the result of this is that Wolverine basically destroyed the X-Men for the Red Skull and all the rogues that had teamed up with each other. And so because of this, it ultimately led to the whole Old Man Logan story and the attempt to take down Red Skull and all that kind of good stuff. And we'll get into like the Hulk aspect as we go through this. But the idea is that that story was an alternate reality story. This is an alternate reality take on an alternate reality story. So it's like 2 times removed from the main Marvel universe, but it's still pretty cool for what it is, because what this does is it basically follows the original Old Man Logan story. And that's the way it goes when it comes to alternate realities. If you're new to Marvel Comics, like the What If series, for example, let's say that in the main Marvel universe, Spider-Man was Venom, which he was. You know, Peter Parker became, I guess, had the Venom symbiote for a little while. It was the black and white costume. Marvel wanted to shift him up. What Marvel will do is they'll come along and they'll do a what if story, and they'll say, okay, what if Spider-Man had kept the Venom symbiote instead of getting rid of it? Now, what this does is it basically says, okay, what if Old Man Logan had become Venom in the Old Man Logan storyline after it finished? And that's kind of the cool thing, because what this does is it picks up after the events are all said and done. Now, with regard to the Incredible Hulk and the son of the Incredible Hulk, keep in mind, when the villains had basically conquered the United States and presumably conquered the world, this ultimately led to the United States being divvied up into different territories. Of course, we never really found out what happened to the rest of the world. We don't know if the world was perfectly fine and the United States was the only country that was conquered. All we're told is that the United States had been split up into territories by whoever was strong enough to rule them. And if somebody else came along and conquered someone and then took their territory, that's just the way it was. For example, I believe Magneto had a giant slice in the center of the country, and then Kingpin killed him and took it. So it's one of those cool things when it comes to those you know, dystopian future stories. But with regards to the Incredible Hulk, he ruled everything from really Washington State all the way down to New Mexico, California, Arizona, all that kind of good stuff. And the idea was that he had effectively taken She-Hulk and then forced her to start procreating with him. Take that for what it's worth. This resulted in a whole bunch of, you know, really messed up kids, really screwed up offspring, but ultimately they ruled the territory that Wolverine had set up a family in. And so what ended up happening is that when Wolverine went on this mission with Hawkeye to basically try to overthrow the Red Skull, it all went sour. The Red Skull ended up getting killed by Wolverine anyway. When he came back, Bruce Banner's family had basically killed Old Man Logan's family. And so the result was that Old Man Logan traveled back to the Bruce Banner family, killed them all, and then took Banner Jr., basically this little baby that had just been born, and then rode off into the sunset. Now, different answers have been given in terms of what happened after that. Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four deals with the future of that. We also have the Old Man Logan story that was written as part of All New, All Different Marvel by Jeff Lemire, one of the greatest stories. And if you're reading it right now, somehow or another, the Hulk family returned, and they're led by Maestro Hulk, which is like this super powerful version of the Incredible Hulk, and Old Man Logan is fighting them, and it is amazing. It is so good. But what this does is it basically picks up 15 years after the events events of the original Old Man Logan story. And what it basically says here is that Old Man Logan had basically revealed to Bruce Banner Jr. what he had done, and essentially saying, I killed your father. I killed your father and I killed everybody in your family. Now, he doesn't explicitly tell him why. He tries to, but in the end, he doesn't explicitly tell him why. And the reason is because Banner Jr. just kind of loses it. And that makes perfect sense. If you suddenly found out you were adopted, that's not a great big huge deal. If you found out that you were adopted and you were adopted because the person who adopted you wiped out the entirety of your family, you'd be pretty pissed. You'd be pretty mad. And of course you would seek revenge. And so in this interim where Bruce Banner Jr. just kind of walks away and leaves Old Man Logan alone, we pick up sometime later, out in this place in Baja, and Old Man Logan just kind of hanging out there, just being drunk all the time. Remember, when it came to him as a character, the older he got, the weaker his healing factor got, just by virtue of him being laced with adamantium. That was one of the cool things from the Logan movie, is it actually adapted that concept from the comics into the film itself, because it's well established in Marvel Comics, the older Logan gets, the weaker his healing factor will get, because it's constantly battling against adamantium poisoning. But the idea is that he's suddenly met by the arrival of Angel. Now, this is kind of a big deal, because Angel, in the original Old Man Logan story, I don't remember if he was just one of the bodies that was there. Honestly, I'd have to assume that he wasn't, if he's here in this story. But we never really had any indication that any of the X-Men survived the slaughter of the Xavier Institute at the hands of Old Man Logan. Now, it does make sense that some X-Men wouldn't be there. And remember, when the original Old Man Logan story kicked off, we never really saw the battle. We've had little bits and pieces that have been touched on by, Jeff Lemire and All New, All Different Marvel, with like Magneto levitating into New York and just bringing the SHIELD helicarrier crashing down on the city. It was one of the coolest moments from the whole story. We had little tidbits here and there, but we didn't really get like the full scale event. So it's entirely possible somebody survived. That's just part of the open slate thing that you get when it comes to these massive stories that skip over huge chunks of time. But the idea here is that Warren's initial news is that a new generation of mutants is basically being trained back at what used to be the Xavier Institute. Now remember, this actually falls directly in line with Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four. If you guys never saw my videos on that, in Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, it dealt with the arrival of just like a new Earth out of nowhere. And what we ended up finding out was that in the far future of the Old Man Logan universe, this Banner Jr. kid had basically risen to become one of a new generation of superheroes. Some were mutants who were basically being reborn. Others were, different characters that had kind of existed out there. But the idea was that, the Earth was basically coming to an end. Galactus was wanting to consume it, and they all killed Galactus and then used his body as a vessel to travel back in time. So again, it was kind of a cool scenario with those things playing out, but it also falls directly in line with the whole House of M. To sidetrack here for a second, and this is something that I hope you guys have thought about if you ever read the Old Man Logan story. In the Old Man Logan story, what we found out was that after the death of the X-Men, no more mutants were being born. Mutants simply ceased to exist. We ended up finding out in this far-flung future of, the Old Man Logan universe, mutants were coming back. But there was this time period, some maybe 100 years or 150 years or something like that, when mutants simply just didn't exist anymore. Now, the funny thing about this, and the more I thought about it, the more it seemed to ring true. In the original House of M event, the Scarlet Witch went crazy, warped reality, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the story, she said no more mutants. So things reset back to normal. The mutant population was reduced to 198 and no more mutants were being born. There was a story where Beast had analyzed everything that had happened and had come to the realization that the Scarlet Witch's actions had affected the multiverse, which would have to include the Old Man Logan universe. So that would explain how mutants weren't coming back. Well, then you suddenly have the events of Avengers versus X-Men, where the arrival of the Phoenix Force and the dispersing of the Phoenix Force and Hope becoming the Phoenix Force and all that kind of stuff leads to the re-emergence of mutants across the universe and the multiverse, which would explain how it is that those mutants are coming back in the Old Man Logan future. I'm not saying it's an absolute truth, just kind of a cool little thing to think about. But of course, all of this is basically just revealed to be a ruse by Warren Worthington himself, by Angel, in the sense that he led Old Man Logan here for the purpose of taking him out. Now, this brings in a handful of people. It brings in Hawkeye's daughter, the new Spider-Woman, and then it brings in Bruce Banner's son, Banner Jr. Now, of course, these characters have all felt disenfranchised in different ways. For example, Spider-Girl basically had her kingdom taken from her when it was learned that the reason why she was being held captive is because in the Old Man Logan story, she had tried to take out the existing Kingpin. The result was that when she was freed by Hawkeye and Old Man Logan, she basically led this ruse that she was just an innocent victim. When she had the opportunity, not only did she take out the existing Kingpin, she tried to kill Old Man Logan and Hawkeye. Of course, they defeated all of her forces, but in doing so, basically destroyed her empire. They pulled it out from under her, allowing somebody else to take her place. Of course, Banner Jr. basically just has this grudge against Old Man Logan, and that's really about it. Now, there are a couple things here with regards to how these characters relate to Old Man Logan, in the sense that it's really just them being angry. I mean, that's really all it is. It's just young angst, them having grudges against Old Man Logan, a combination of different things that all come together together to sort of create this perfect storm. But what we also end up finding out is that in their efforts to basically get their revenge on Logan, they had ran out and they had grabbed the Venom T-Rex. We never found out where this T-Rex came from. Now, it would stand to reason that if the Old Man Logan universe was the same as the main Marvel universe, it would have to have the Savage Land. The Savage Land is a place in Antarctica which basically houses all these creatures, flora, fauna, plants, animals, things like that, that were believed to have been extinct. Now, of course, that goes into the actions of the Beyonders and so on and so forth, and a great big huge history that we don't really need to get into. The idea is that it's largely could be assumed that this T-Rex somehow made its way to the United States or was brought there, but whatever the reason is, where some people will say it's Devil Dinosaur, which it could entirely be, although there's no real indication that it is because, you know, when you end up seeing this dinosaur, it's just a brown dinosaur, it's not actually red, but when you know, this T-Rex shows up, it was basically imbued with the Venom symbiote, and so the result was that it was just running around attacking everything that it found. Now, of course, this leads directly into Old Man Logan breaking free, and then he immediately takes his T-Rex out, and then in turn actually feeds Spider-Girl to the T-Rex, which is kind of messed up. But following this, because of the fact that the Venom symbiote is sentient, it can think for itself. It functions according to its own will. The Venom symbiote actually abandons the T-Rex and bonds itself to Old Man Logan. Now, this is kind of cool because remember, what the Venom symbiote is designed to do is essentially amp up the existing powers of a superhero. Now, it does not reset them to zero, and that's the important thing to keep in mind. When I say reset to zero, I mean set them back at a fresh starting point. So it's not like Old Man Logan bonds with a Venom symbiote and suddenly he's never struggling with a healing factor again. He's struggling with a healing factor insofar as his body's normal composition, but the Venom symbiote complements that. The Venom symbiote says, okay, I will provide an additional buffer of a healing factor for you. I'll sustain physical damage and then basically heal myself, and worst case scenario, you get hurt a little bit, but best case scenario, you never get hurt at all, and it's only me as a Venom symbiote which can easily recover. Now, the other half of this is that this story plays on the idea of the Venom symbiote functioning according to how it was after it left Peter Parker. Remember, when it came to the Venom symbiote, when Peter Parker first got it and brought it back to Earth, we didn't really know anything about it. When the Venom symbiote was cast out by Spider-Man, it was angry, it was vengeful, and it felt abandoned. The result was that it bonded itself to Eddie Brock that had a mutual hatred for Spider-Man and gave birth to the Venom that we all know and love. This basically ties into that concept, that the Venom symbiote, even going all the way into the Old Man Logan universe, still is just a vengeful creature. It's just angry at the world just because of the fact that, you know, Peter Parker cast it out. And so what this does is it feeds directly into the desire for revenge of Old Man Logan. Now, this is designed to kind of tell us this idea that even if Old Man Logan is not necessarily angry at like his son Banner Jr., or he's not necessarily angry at like Spider-Girl or even Warren Worthington, at the end, he's just still filled with guilt and remorse. And oftentimes, guilt and remorse manifest themselves as anger, just lashing out at people. And so because of this ultimately leads into him just almost tearing apart every single person that he faces off against. Warren Worthington, a handful of these guys, and eventually chasing down Bruce Banner Jr. Now again, in the midst of this argument, in the midst of this discussion, Old Man Logan kind of breaks away from the Venom symbiote's influence. Where the Venom symbiote just keeps saying, kill the boy, kill the boy, kill the boy, Old Man Logan kind of breaks away from this influence and simply says no, and basically just says, the whole reason why I didn't tell you about why I killed your dad is because I love you. Now also keep in mind, the biggest fear of Old Man Logan is that Bruce Banner Jr. would become his father. Bruce Banner was kind of driven insane by a multitude of factors when the original Old Man Logan story happened. He was driven insane by the, radiation from the bombs that were dropping when humanity was launching these last-ditch efforts to try to stop the various villains that were out there. He's being driven by the fact that there was no real law and order, so there was nothing to sort of curb the Incredible Hulk mindset and maintain this moral compass. It was just a guy out there effectively becoming feral. And so because of this, the biggest fear of Old Man Logan is that his son Banner Jr. would fall down the same path. Now in truth, I doubt Banner Jr. would have ended up in the exact same way as his father, just because of the fact that his father was a combination of psychological and then physical issues that all came together to create this perfectly insane guy. Banner Jr. is just a kid who wants to know who his dad is. And so again, finding out his dad was killed by Old Man Logan ultimately results in him, kind of lashing out against Old Man Logan himself. Now, of course, in the midst of all this, and in the midst of this, huge discussion and argument and so on and so forth, this ultimately leads to Venomized Captain America popping up, grabbing Old Man Logan and whisking him away. So again, this all ties into the main Venom Venomverse story. We don't exactly know what it is that's going on, but the implication from what we've seen so far is that there is a story where the various Venom symbiotes have all just run awry, where the Carnage symbiote, the Venom symbiote, they've all just sort of gone crazy and went out there and done their own, bizarre things and just sort of lost their minds. I have no clue. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.